up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down. Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down.
Shout out Young Swish.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Sitdown Morning Show with 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗏𝗏. I'm your host, 𝗦𝗨𝗏𝗏, joined by my co-host as always, my main man, my best friend, Daniel Alameda. A lot of stuff to get into, a lot of stuff to talk about. But before we do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content. Remember, we're live Mondays for the sit down, Thursdays for the sit down, and Fridays for the sit down. And you know, it's not a Friday if it's not fantasy football Fridays, obviously, here. We'll be having 𝗦𝗁𝗃𝗧𝗏 join us later on the show and UFC talk to wrap up the show with 𝗦𝗘𝗧𝗏. But Daniel, we're going to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals because, of course, what is a sit-down morning show if we don't talk about the Cincinnati Bengals? But before we jump into that, I do want to talk about the Chiefs. I feel like we robbed ourselves just last show because we were so deep into the Bengals talk. We didn't get a chance to really dive into the Kansas City Chiefs losing another week. I want to get your thoughts, though, Daniel. We know I've been very, very hard on the Chiefs in the past because, like our friend, who we haven't seen in a while, I wonder why that is. Maybe it's because the Chiefs haven't been winning, but our good friend Sean Brennan, right? He hasn't been in the comment section recently, and maybe it's because those Chiefs are struggling. I want to talk about that. Are the Chiefs, or is the Chiefs dynasty over, Daniel? Daniel, let's get your thoughts.
Yeah, this is the NFL, and the Chiefs are probably the closest dynasty we've had to the Patriots, and they've been exceptional. Every single one of Patrick Mahomes' season, they made the playoffs. Every single one of his seasons, they've had 10+ wins. And it may not be this year. And I think that when we talk about dynasty, I think that they still have the baseline of that, right? You still have the head coach, Andy Reid. You still have your quarterback. You still have your same defense coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo. You still have a couple of your pieces on defense, Trent McDuffie. You got Chris Jones. But at the end of the day, this is the NFL, and nobody is an exception for the entire course of their career, right? The Kansas City Chiefs, perfect example, last year. And even the season before, we saw cracks in their armor. This was a team that wasn't perfect. Last year, they were, playing close games, and they were winning those close games. You can go look at their record. They were 15-2 last season, right? And on a surface level, that is one of the best seasons we've seen in recent history. But when you look a little bit deeper, you will see that team was 11-0 in one-score games. Phenomenal. Great job, Andy Reid. Great job, Patrick Mahomes, winning close games. But that was, and this is a tale of two seasons. Last year, they were winning games, but Mahomes wasn't really looking good. When you look at the numbers, when you look at how they were performing, the numbers weren't great. They were averaging 24 points per game, and they were barely sneaking by. When you look at this season, Mahomes is throwing for a lot more passing yards. He's throwing for a lot more touchdowns, and they're losing games. In one-score games this season, Malik, they are 1-6. And that's the story of their season. They're not winning these close games. And when you look at Chiefs fans, you got a lot of them going out there saying, it's Andy Reid's fault. He's too old. Well, I hate to say it, but that dude's under contract for the next 4 years. And I don't think he's retiring this season. So is their dynasty over? I would probably say that their dynasty might be over in the sense of every single year you are in it. You look at the Patriots, it was every single year they were in it. And I don't think they're going to return back next year. And even this year, if they make the playoffs, they're not a shoo-in. The Patriots are a better football team than them right now. The Buffalo Bills are probably a better football team than them right now. Hell, are they even a better football team than the Houston Texans? I don't know. So there is a lot more left in the story to be told. But I think and if you're a Chiefs fan, I would be concerned. I would be concerned because the superhero aura around this team, it's not there anymore. Teams are able to go into your house and take over your house. That's exactly what they're doing. The Denver Broncos, you have the longest winning streak against them, against any of any NFL team, and the Denver Broncos are a better football team than you right now. Same thing with the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are looking to sweep the Chiefs for the first time since 2013. And this is the type of story that we see play out. And it's kind of the downfall of the invincibility cloak that this team has seemingly had. So I think that this was a couple years in the making. You can look at last season, the 2024 season. Hell, you can even look at the 2023 season when they went on and they won the Super Bowl. This team wasn't perfect, and they had major flaws. And you can look at one key piece, Travis Kelce. He's getting older. The dude might retire this season. I'm concerned if I'm a Chiefs fan, 1,000%. So I think that they've got Mahomes there, and they've got some young talent. Whether it's 𝗬𝗓𝗏𝗏, whether it is, you can look at the defense side of the ball on their defensive line, but I'd be concerned. You went out this offseason, you signed George Karlaftis to a 4-year mega extension. The dude is average at best. And I think that this is finally a little bit of a changing of the guard. And like I said, this was a couple years in the making. Last season, when you look at the team, when you look at the film that they put out, they were not great. In the playoffs, they were not great. But they found a way to win close games. And if you're not winning close games, that invincibility cloak, oh my God, invincibility cloak is no longer there. So I do think that their dynasty's over. And I think that this team is probably going to miss the playoffs this season. I do think that they beat the Chargers this week, but I'm concerned for the Chiefs team. And I'm curious to see, how do they respond? How do they respond off of a playoff loss or of missing the playoffs? And I think there are a lot of questions to be answered, and I'm curious to see how this Chiefs team answers them. But this is unlike we've ever seen this Chiefs team before, and I do think that they are going to miss the playoffs, and I do think that their dynasty is over because they have a long road, especially if they miss the playoffs. They've got a long road to climb back. So, yeah, I'm definitely concerned with this Chiefs team.
You know what? I'm going to do something I haven't done in a while on the Sit Down Morning Show. Let's bring 𝗦𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗧 in, actually. You know why? Because I want to get a different opinion before I cook. And I know Mike has a lot of thoughts on football, and this is completely off the hip. So, Mike, I apologize if I'm throwing you into the fire, but I want to get your thoughts on the Kansas City Chiefs. And is their dynasty over? 𝗦𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗧?
Daniel brought it up, but I think a big thing here is the simple fact that it looks like Andy Reid might have lost a step. Just some of the game management decisions and the personnel decisions have been really head scratching and frankly mind-boggling to me. I mean, with a weapons arsenal that consists of Rashee Rice, and I know his skill set is limited, but I still, you guys know how I feel about him. I think he can be an engine of a passing attack. Yeah. But with a limited arsenal of pass catchers, you have to have an established run game. And for some reason, they just continue to run Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt into a brick wall 25 times a game. They have an intriguing rookie that they get 2 touches a game, but just someone like I think he deserves more touches. Brashard Smith, that rookie. And obviously, Travis Kelce having stone hands that have cost the Chiefs at least 2 games at this point doesn't help. And obviously, the drop from Rashee Rice himself in that game last week doesn't help. But there's just some things with this team that are deeply concerning in my eyes. And you can only hide poor roster construction decisions with Patrick Mahomes for so long. That this is, for the last 2 years, has been a team that is not equipped to win games on the biggest stage. And it was masked by Mahomes in the early stages of the playoffs last year before they were just exposed by the Eagles. And in the regular season, it was hidden by the fact that they were dominant in 1-score games. So I think that this is a team with plenty of flaws, and we know how hard it is to consistently win in the NFL. I mean, we sit here as a trio of Bengals fans, so we all know how hard it is to continue to keep things up in the NFL, and it's impressive. It is so incredibly impressive that they've been able to do what they have done, but At some point for every team these days, things start to unravel. And this is that point. I don't want to write off the Chiefs as a team that can bounce back in the next couple of years. I mean, when you have a guy that's the caliber of Patrick Mahomes, and some would argue that he's one of one given his track record, but just when you have one of those 5 quarterbacks that we see in the NFL these days, you've always got a chance. One of those being Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, whoever you want to throw into that bucket of quarterbacks, you've always got a chance. But the Chiefs do, in my eyes, need to sit down, regroup, and figure out where their missteps were, where they went wrong. Because, yeah, these last couple of seasons, it's been pretty rough.
Yeah, completely. And I think that when I look at this team as well, I am concerned for them. And I think that there are some fundamental flaws. I agree that the biggest questions I really have, like you said, is some of the personnel and just looking like they're not out coaching people anymore. You can even look, like you mentioned Andy Reid, and we can even mention Steve Spagnuolo. We were watching, recently one of my favorite players, Noel Williams. The dude is a talented corner, and he's not getting snaps. He's playing behind Justin Watson, and this cornerback room outside of Trent McDuffie has been getting cooked. They've been getting torched, and that's where I'm concerned. I'm concerned on how this team is going to improve and build upon what they've got. But I'm curious to see how they bounce back, because I think that there's a path. It goes one of two ways, right? Either Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, these guys have lost a step, and maybe we get to the point in one of the next 2 years where Reid says, hey, I'm going to call it quits. And I know I got 4 years left on my deal. I'm going to call it quits. And maybe you get a new face in here, and maybe that's the case. Or they take a turn like the Eagles did after the Eagles, they lost in the Super Bowl, and then the year after they went and they had a terrible playoff run and everything looked like they were falling. They went and they rebuilt that next offseason. They went to the Super Bowl. So I think it's one of two ways. And I think the fact that they've got Mahomes there, I think that matters. But the weapons, the late game management, and just this offense, they are not clicking at all. So that's where I'm concerned with this Chiefs team.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at it, I hate to say that I predicted this, but I predicted this. Listen, I agree. Rashee Rice is a talent, right? But you can tell there are chinks in the Chiefs' armor, whether it be Travis Kelce no longer being the elusive tight end we've known him to be throughout the years, whether it be the lack of development of a true elite weapon on the outside. I know Xavier Worthy has flashed at spots for the Chiefs, but he's been in and out of the lineup at times due to injury. There are things that have taken place that have allowed that allowed us to get to this point. And I agree with Mike's point. I think that Brashard Smith is a guy that when I turn on the film and you watch him, he's a guy that just completely just flashes, but they struggle to get him involved consistently. To me, it's very clear they have their third down guy that they choose when to truly utilize, and that guy is a guy, Juju Smith-Schuster, but he's been one of the more reliable, tough yardage guys for the Chiefs. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but am I wrong for saying that a Kansas City Chiefs offense is sort of predictable? Yeah. It's kind of predictable. Like, in short yardage situation, the ball is going to Kareem Hunt, right? If not, it's going to be the motion in Noah Gray or the motion in Travis Kelce, and then you take a drop back and then you dish it to the tight end on a quick flicker. Or, the big one. The tight end will go under center, and the tight end will do the quarterback sneak or the tush push or whatever you call it. It's very basic to me. On third downs, Brashard Smith is coming in, especially if you're in a 3rd or 5 situation, 3rd and medium situation, because he's a guy that's probably going to catch the ball out of the backfield. You have Xavier Worthy running a deep, taking a deep shot down the field. You got Travis Kelce's pretty much running a little bit of a dig route, in the center of the field. Am I missing something with this offense? To me, it's very simple what they have. One thing that I guess the Chiefs have done less of recently, or Patrick Mahomes has done less of recently, he hasn't been using his legs as much. He hasn't been using his legs as much, and that's something that I've noticed, and that's something that come to me. I said, Patrick Mahomes not as mobile as he might have been earlier in the season, and that could have been, hey, my weapons have been out. That could have been, hey, the injury, right? Remember he hurt his ankle earlier in the season, and I have no idea, but I don't see a lot of dynamic when I turn on the Kansas City Chiefs. Daniel?
Yeah, this is a team that I'm not very impressed with right now, and they've got a chance to go out and prove us wrong. They've got a chance that, hey, just because they're not going to win the division, just because they may sneak into the playoffs, it does not mean that they don't have a chance to make some noise. Because, like I said, this AFC, while I like these teams, I like the Broncos, I like the Texans, they're beatable. They are. And this Kansas City Chiefs team, they've got a chance to go out and right the wrongs. They still have everything in front of them. They have a Chargers game right now. If they win this game, they're right in the playoff mix. And then you got a Tennessee Titans game. And then you got a couple other games to where if you find yourself getting on a roll, then you face maybe a Pittsburgh Steelers team in the playoffs in round one, or maybe face a Baltimore Ravens team, or hell, maybe even face the Jacksonville Jaguars. And once you win one playoff game, it gets it rolling. But I am concerned with this offense, and I just don't know if this offense can keep up with these other teams. And quite frankly, I just don't know if this offense can match or even go up against these great defenses like the Houston Texans or like the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have been one of the best run defenses in the entire league this year. So I think that there's a clear level of these great teams in the AFC, like the Bills, like the Patriots right now. And this Chiefs team, they are not on it. And their superpower of coaching, it's just not there right now. So, yeah.
Yeah. Those are my thoughts as well. I hate to write a team's obituary right away. I hate to say that a team is dead in the water, because I don't believe that. I feel like the Chiefs could still sneak into the playoffs, especially with everything shaping up the way that it is right now. I think the Chiefs can still sneak into the playoffs, but it's an uphill climb. Who's next on their schedule?
They've got right now the Chargers, and then the Titans, Broncos, and Raiders.
That's tough. They're sitting at what? 6 and
7.
6 and 7.
Nope.
6, 7.
Jeez.
Okay, so they're sitting at 6 and 7 right now, and you've got the Chargers on deck. This is a must-win game.
Yep.
This is a must-win game. And you got that's tough, man. 3 division games down the stretch. Damn. This really might. But then again, we have to be very, very careful, because if the Chiefs get a high pick in the draft, and they have to, I guess, regroup. I won't even call it a rebuild, because it's not a rebuild. It's just a regroup. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. What do you think they're missing the most? Because they're probably going to lose Isaiah Pacheco on free agency, if you call it a loss, I guess. What do you think they're missing the most, Daniel or Mike?
I know what it is in my eyes. I mean, obviously, we talked about the run game, and that needs to be better. But when you were talking about the predictability of this offense, I think it's at least in the passing game, it's largely predicated by the fact that they just can't push the ball downfield. You talk about Mahomes has been off this year. I was looking at the numbers. Only 50% of his downfield passes have been charted as even catchable. And obviously there's some subjectivity there, but the fact that he's not on point with his downfield passes is problematic. But they just don't have a downfield weapon. You can say it's Tyquan Thornton. It was supposed to be Xavier Worthy, but Xavier Worthy is just not that good. Like he's fast, but he is not that good at generating separation and just coming down with the ball, whether it be his ball tracking or just his ability to convert in contested catch situations. We all knew that that's not his strong suit, but they just don't have really any sort of semblance of a downfield passing attack. And last week was a one-off, because we all know what the problems were along the offensive line. They had multiple injuries coming into the game. They lost their starting right tackle in the game itself. So that last week was kind of a one-off, but just overall, this has not been something that we see from this offense this season. It is generating chunk explosive plays that don't come from massive yak plays. So the Mahomes is just not pushing the ball downfield effectively enough. And I think that's just a really, really big part of their problem. And obviously, like just those completion numbers and the accuracy numbers, that can be fluky year to year. But I also really do think it's a personnel thing within their group of pass catchers.
Totally. And you also got this offseason Juju Hollywood Brown, and Tyquan Thornton. All three of those guys are free agents. So you probably got to make a move. And there's even the bigger question, right? What happens with Travis Kelce? That's another part where their offense, they've missed a step. So it's weird that it sounds like we're going after the same problem that they've tried time and time again. They have invested resources in the wide receiver room. They went out, they got Xavier Ward. They went out, they tried to get Marquise Brown. They've tried so many things, but it still hasn't fully worked. So I agree. I think if I'm looking at round one, potentially, I'm looking at probably a weapon, right? Whether it's a wide receiver, hell, maybe it's a tight end from Oregon. I know a lot of people are high on him. 𝗬𝗓𝗏 is another.
I wouldn't
one.
like that. I wouldn't like that very much. I don't think that'd be very nice.
It wouldn't be very nice, but like that's a great spot. Them, and then maybe, I mean, you could even look to the defensive line. Like I said, I know that they re-signed George Karlaftis and they got Chris Jones, but I think that room leaves a lot to be desired. And like I said, George, and I'm just not very impressed with what they got going on the defensive line. So
do we think this is Travis Kelce's last year?
I think so.
I think so. I think it's got to be.
Yeah.
I mean, Noah Grape snaps increase has increased, by a large portion. It feels like almost Travis Kelce is in there for specific downs at points. He's not playing every single down for the Chiefs anymore. I don't know. Just my thoughts. I'm very curious to hear what you guys think in the comment section. Do you guys think that this is the end for the Kansas City Chiefs? Do you think the Kansas City Chiefs will find a way to rattle off more victories? If there's any team that has proven the ability to do that, it's the Chiefs. Listen, we know it's hard to beat a team twice, right? You got to think the Raiders game is a gimme for them, right? But you've got to find a way to beat this Chargers team. And this Chargers team right now, they're looking good.
Yep.
They're looking good. And listen, I just want to take a victory lap really quickly. I told folks, I said, hey, listen, everywhere Harbaugh goes, everywhere Jim Harbaugh goes, he turns them around. Everywhere he's go. Stanford, right? Turn around the Niners, had the Niners very competitive. Michigan, we know what's going on there now.
Yep.
But he's turned them around. And now, lo and behold, he's doing the same thing with the Chargers. And Sean Payton's got the Broncos playing. Do I think the Broncos will make a Super Bowl run? No. Do I think the Broncos are, contenders, really? Like serious contenders? No. But I think it's impressive. I think what that Broncos defense is doing right now, I think that Broncos defense is way far more impressive than that Broncos offense. And I think that Vance Joseph will be in consideration for some head coaching jobs this season. Wink, wink. Listen, at the end of the day, this is no longer just the Chiefs division. There are big dogs that are involved. And listen, you stay at the top long enough, teams will start to figure you out if you don't constantly evolve. You know who the Chiefs are very similar to right now in a ways, even though they're not as successful right now? The Buffalo Bills. There's a changing of the guard happening right now in the AFC East. The Patriots sort of gotten them figured out. Now, I also think that is a talent issue offensively for the Buffalo Bills. I think that they're missing some true weapons on the outside that could help, make this team look a lot better. But I think they're in similar spots. I think they're in a reconstruction mode this offseason. I think both teams, if they want to stay at the top of their division, if they want to continue to be those juggernauts, I think that they've got to leave no stone unturned in the offseason. That's just where I stand. That's where I sit. Mike, we're going to bring you back in on the fantasy football talk, man. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that because I know you're a huge Rashee Rice guy, and I knew you couldn't wait to probably get your 2 cents in on him.
I'll see you guys in a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
Michael Hara, appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Again, we'll have Michael Hara back in on the fantasy football segment. Hey, listen, we're going to go from one AFC West team to another. Let's talk about Pete Carroll and the Raiders. There are some folks that are calling for Pete Carroll's job. I'm not there yet, Daniel. I'm not there yet. There are folks that are saying, hey, Pete Carroll needs to be out. Listen, did you look at the Raiders job and think that this was a 1-year turnaround? Did anybody look at the Raiders job and say, hey, this is a 1-year turnaround? Pete Carroll's going to turn the Raiders around in one season? Because if you did, well, I think that's a problem in itself. I never once walked away from this feeling that, hey, Pete Carroll is going to turn the Raiders around. I didn't walk away feeling that way. I always felt as if this was going to be a work in progress. And if we're constantly, going to take a Hall of Fame coach, right, and we're going to hold his feet to the fire after 1 year and say, oh, you're out, then I don't know if the Raiders will ever get it. That's where I stand. I don't know if the Raiders will ever get it because I think the Raiders are in a spot in which, well, you got to see this thing through. And this is a big there's a big fire culture in the NFL, right? There are Falcons fans that want Raheem Morris's job. There are folks that want the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals job and Zach Taylor, deservedly so. There are folks that want a lot of people's job. If you're not winning in the league, what are you doing? That's the basis of what every coach is judged off of. I'm sure there are some folks out there that are probably calling for Nick Sirianni's job after just winning a Super Bowl last year. It is the not for long league. It is what have you done for me lately league. And well, I think Pete Carroll came out of his retirement to help the Raiders in a rebuild. He might not see the Raiders get to the mountaintop because he is the oldest coach in football. Yeah. He might be like, hey, I'm done with this. But I believe that if you stick with Pete Carroll, he will put them in a position in which they could be successful when they do bring his predecessor in, who will take the Raiders over the top. But you got to allow him to see this thing through. I think you're very fortunate to land a coach like Pete Carroll. And you got to realize, hey, there was going to be some rough times. First and foremost, before you make any drastic decision when it comes to a Pete Carroll, can you get a head coach in there? Right? Can you get not a head coach? Can you get a quarterback in there? Yeah. Damn, sorry, my mind's all over the place.
Yeah.
Can you get a quarterback in there? Can you get a quarterback in here before we properly judge him? Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, man, I'm with you. This is always going to be a bad situation because somebody was always going to get the bad end of the stick with this because this Raiders team was trash. And even in this offseason, that's one of my favorite things to do is you look at these teams that are bad and you say, hey, who's that team that can make it up, right? Is it, this past year, it was the Patriots and it was the Bears. Those are the two teams that really went from worst to practically first, right? And the Bears had a quick turnaround, but they also had the number 1 pick, Caleb Williams, and he was finally into his second season. They went out and they had a splurge in free agency. And you look at the same thing with the Patriots. They went out, they had a top 3 pick or top 5 pick in Drake May entering his second season. They got a new head coach in there and they went out, they added free agents like Milton Williams. They added a ton of free agents and they went out, they added Stephon Diggs. They drafted a left tackle. This Raiders team, and maybe this points to a bigger problem, they ain't got nothing. There is no infrastructure on that roster. They went out and they gutted a lot. And that's going to be the problem with Pete Carroll and this new regime if people expect them to win right away. They went out and they said, hey, all the culture guys, if you are making problems, Jack Jones was out of there. You had even Jermaine Pratt went in, had some problems, out of there. They had so many different guys that had quote unquote problems. And they said, hey, we are going to shift in this new culture. Well, that works if you got talent. But their offensive line is the worst in the league. And your quarterback sucks. Your weapons suck outside of Brock Bowers. And you went out with the number 6 overall pick. You drafted a running back. These are questionable decisions on the front of the general manager. But that's why it also takes time. We've got to see their vision. We got to see it through because that's where I agree. This is not all on Pete Carroll. No head coach comes in and can turn around what they've got going on. Hell, Mike Vrabel, for the turnaround he had, he would not do, worse to first with this Raiders roster. They just do not have it right now. Even look at the Indianapolis Colts, right? People want to applaud, Shane Steichen for the job he did. Yeah, great job. But look at the roster he has. Look at the weapons he has. Daniel Jones was a fantastic signing. And people can say, hey, him, Geno Smith, what's the difference? Well, the difference is one of them has Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, Tyler Warren, Josh Downs, and the other's got Brock Bowers. And that's it. You're relying on Trey Tucker. You traded away Jacoby Myers. You have one of the worst offensive lines in the league. That's where my mindset goes. And that's why I agree. I do not blame this all on Pete Carroll. And I do think that he's got to see another year because if I'm the Raiders ownership, I'm getting tired of this shit. I am. I'm getting tired of giving a contract to John Gruden and giving a contract to Josh McDaniels and giving a contract to Antonio Pierce and giving a contract to Pete Carroll and letting him go. Carroll is on a 3-year contract with a 4th-year team option. That's not long. So give him another year, right? If you give Pete Carroll another year and it doesn't work out next year, then you've only got 1 more year left on the deal, and that's fine. But you've got to give him 1 more year. And I agree with you. Right now, they have the number 1 overall pick. Projected. But if I were them, I'd be looking at Fernando Mendoza. Or you go and say, hey, let's trade back. let's trade back. Let's get a couple future first-round picks, and let's build up our entire team. So I know Pete Carroll said this is not going to be a long-term project, and he expected to win now. Well, I hate to tell you, but this team was always going to be a long-term project, and I'm curious to see how they approach this offseason, because I agree they need a quarterback, and they need a quarterback bad. So I would be looking to a quarterback in the draft, and they need to build up that offensive line, because I believe that they are top 5 in cap for this upcoming offseason. So they got the money to spend. You got to go out and you got to spend, and you got to go big this offseason. So there are a lot of questions to be asked about this general manager and this front office with the way they approach things. And they've got a couple pieces that they can build around, and Brock Bowers, Max Crosby, and Ashton Jeanty. But besides that, you got a lot of shape shifting to do with this roster. And I always believe it starts with the quarterback. So let's see what they do.
Listen, Daniel, before we get into, obviously, our Bengals talk, you said you had a couple of Week 15 predictions. Before we get into those, do you do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or upload content from the TWSN studios. Daniel, let's get into them.
Yeah, I've got a couple predictions I just want to discuss real quick, and these were just some games and things that are on the horizon. Number one is the Cleveland Browns versus Chicago Bears. This is going to be the lowest scoring game of the entire weekend, potentially of the entire season. I'm very confident in saying this is going to be a slugfest. I know the Bears have Ben Johnson. I know that they've got a high-flying offense, but this is going to be the coldest game of the entire season, and probably the coldest game in Chicago Bears history. Right now, it's slated to be about 0 degrees with wind chills of negative 15 degrees. That bodes for a low-scoring, tough, hard-fought game. And I look at the Chicago Bears offense and even the Cleveland Browns offense. I think that this offense, I know Shedeur Sanders is there. They are going to run the ball, and I think that they are going to have a hell of a time trying to score the ball. And I think we see a very low-scoring game. And I look at this, I would not be shocked if this game is 13-6. I would not be shocked if this game is 13-3, because even look at both sides. The Browns defense has been a lot worse than it was at the beginning of the season, but they are still very stout. And I look at the Bears defense. The Bears defense has actually picked it up over the past couple of weeks. So this game is going to be a very intriguing game to watch. I know a lot of people are going to look to Shedeur Sanders and try to, build the narrative. I don't think that this is the game for it. I think Shedeur probably has less than 20 passing attempts, and this is a very, very, very low scoring game. Number two is, I think the Eagles absolutely crushed the Raiders. And I know we just discussed Pete Carroll and the Raiders, but I think the rumors and the murmurs grow a lot louder for this Raiders team. They're projected to start Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett's projected to be the starter with Geno Smith not practicing. I think this Eagles team bounces back in a big way. The spread is 11.5. I think this Eagles team beats them by 21. And I know the Eagles have a lot of questions, but this Raiders team is trash. This Raiders team has been garbage, and I don't trust Kenny Pickett. I don't trust him any more than Geno Smith, and I think that this offense has been putrid. This offense has been horrid, and this offense, especially when you look at the offensive line, is a bottom 3 offensive line. So I'm looking to the Eagles to bounce back in a big way, and I think that they go out and they dominate the Raiders. And one of my final ones is more of a shocker, but I think Jackson Dart kind of puts the NFL back on notice. I think he goes out and the Giants score 34+ on the Commanders. This is a Commanders team that has not been good. They just got mollywopped last game, and I think that this is a perfect spot. It's a bounce back spot for the Giants, and Jackson Dart is a couple games removed back from being from his injury. He's finally getting in his groove. He's still got weapons that he's been building rapport with Wan'Dale Robinson, Theo Johnson. I think that this is a big-time performance for him, and I think that this is a big game for Mike Kafka, because this is a guy who's kind of coaching for his future. Obviously, I don't think he is going to be the Giants head coach, but he's got to find a job somewhere, and I think that if he can turn this team from being 2-11 to a couple wins down the stretch, I think he can play himself and keep him in those head coaching conversations, at least land on his feet as an offense coordinator somewhere else. So I'm looking at this Giants team to go out. They dropped 34 on the Commanders, and Jackson Dart goes out and has 300 total yards. And one last one I was just looking at that I think is a very weird one, but I think Trevor Lawrence goes out and I think he throws for 4 touchdowns against the Jets. This is a game where the Jets, we don't know who's starting. Tyrod Taylor's hurt. Brady Cook, I believe, is projected to be the starting quarterback in this Jets defense. It was not pretty last week against the Miami Dolphins. That was a divisional matchup, but this Jets team is clearly, I don't know if they're trying to tank, but they look like they're tanking. And this Jaguars team is finally finding their groove. They have one of the best rushing defenses in the league. They went out and they had a big performance against the Colts, and I think that they build on that at home. I think the Jaguars have a big game against the Jets, and I think Trevor Lawrence shocks and throws for 300 plus and 4 total touchdowns against.
Okay, there's a bold take I can get. I can push back. I don't know if Trevor Lawrence throws 300 yards, but hey, listen, we'll see. Listen, that's why they're a bold take, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. I appreciate it, Dan. I think that was I think those were some pretty solid nods. I'm excited to see if the Bears and Browns game truly is one of the lower scoring games, because hey, if there's anybody that sort of has the 411 on how that game might play out, or the weather conditions, all this stuff like that, that's something that Daniel sort of is very weird about, I'll say. And it's something that lends to him being lends to some of his genius, I would say.
Appreciate that.
Hey, I want to let's talk about Bengals versus Ravens before we get into our fantasy football talk. Will the Bengals and Ravens decide? Will the Bengals versus Ravens decide the AFC North? I don't know. Well, you posed this question, Daniel. So I want to get what your thought process is on that, because my mind isn't even thinking quote unquote AFC North, at least as it pertains to the Bengals. You might be talking about for the Steelers purposes as well.
AFC North, yeah.
Right? The AFC North as a whole. I think it's hard to beat a team twice. I think if anybody that can do it with their backs against the wall, it's going to be the Cincinnati Bengals team. That being said, do the Ravens want to lose to the Bengals twice, knowing that in all likelihood with a loss, well, it probably takes them out of handling their own destiny, right? They would need things to sort of fall their way. And I think that the Steelers have a much easier schedule than the Ravens do.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for me, it's pretty simple. I think that while the Bengals do have a chance, obviously they would need to win out. I think that if you go out and the Baltimore Ravens win this game, I think the Ravens are going to go out and win the division. This is a team that they had a big last couple of weeks. And while Lamar Jackson has not been great, they had a big couple of weeks because they had it in their hands. To be honest with you, before that Bengals game, it was, hey, this Ravens team was catching fire. This Ravens team, they were on a 5-game winning streak, and they went out and they lost to the Bengals. They went out and they lost to the Steelers, and now they might be cooked, but they still have everything in front of them. And that's why I think that this is a massive game for them, because if the Ravens lose this game, in my opinion, they're out. I think that it's wraps. I think that the Ravens, they would have lost a tiebreaker to the Cincinnati Bengals, who would be, have that tiebreaker if they were to tie with the records. And this Pittsburgh Steelers team would have everything in front of them. And the Ravens would need a lot of help from the Steelers. And that's why I think that this game is very big for the Pittsburgh Steelers, because either way I look at this, the Pittsburgh Steelers can get a leg up both ways. But I do think that the Pittsburgh Steelers would likely need a Ravens loss, because if the Ravens lose this game, they're looking and sitting very pretty. And that's why I think that this game could go either way. And one of the things that I'm looking at for this game, to be honest with you, is it's Lamar Jackson. And we've had a lot of people on social media discuss, Lamar Jackson versus Joe Burrow. Lamar has not looked great. Lamar has not looked good. And I feel like that's not getting discussed enough, because before this game, and everybody's leading up to this game saying Derrick Henry's going to go out, rush for 125 yards against the Bengals. He's going to go out and dominate the Bengals. And Lamar Jackson, who hasn't thrown for more than one touchdown pass in each of his past 5 games, is going to go out and throw for 3 touchdown passes against the Bengals. I don't see that happening. I think that we see a closer game, and I do think that this Bengals team has a chance to really put this Ravens team away, because like I said, I think if the Ravens lose this game, while they would still be a game ahead of the Cincinnati Bengals, they've got a tough schedule. And I just cannot see that this Ravens team can bounce back from this. This is a do or die for John Harbaugh and the Ravens, because if they lose this game, they put them at 6-8. Then you got to go to New England. Then you got to go to Green Bay. Then you got to go to Pittsburgh. This Ravens team, in my opinion, this is a do or die. And I see a lot of Ravens fans discussing that this is a massive game, and I agree with them, because if they lose this game, I think it is a very tough uphill trajectory for them to win the division, because their record in division would be, I believe, 1-3, and that is not nearly enough to win the division. So I think the Bengals hold the key to ruining the Ravens season, as well as potentially making the Steelers look a lot better than they actually are. So
keeping it on the Bengals, because honestly, the AFC North is a crapshoot this year, right? Usually it's a crapshoot for good reasons, but it's actually a crapshoot for bad reasons this year. Let's talk about the Bengals being under fire. The Bengals are under fire right now by national media. Like, you got people doing extreme takedowns on the Bengals right now. And a lot of it was due to, obviously, Joe Burrow's press conference and folks taking some of the context of, the press conference out. Well, I'm sorry, the content from the press conference out of context to a degree. Let me just be clear. None of us have an oracle. None of us know what the future holds. None of us know what's in his mind. None of us know any of that, right? I think there's some validity to people having concerns about his demeanor. I also think there's some validity to folks going overboard with it, right? Dan Orlovsky coming out saying, hey, this guy's going to request a trade and all that stuff like that. Oh, that's jumping to conclusions, right? Putting it nicely. Let's jump into conclusions. I didn't walk away from that. I walked away feeling that this was a quarterback communicating through the media, maybe his displeasures, that maybe change needs to happen with the organization. I do not think that means he's the change that's going to happen with the organization. I think that anybody that's a competitor, just like a Joe Burrow, would be unhappy with where the current organization is, right? If you're not, then if your quarterback is happy being 4-9 and once again potentially missing the playoffs, then you probably got the wrong guy at the spot. That's where I walk away feeling that. And, I think that change is needed. We've talked about it all week on the show on State of the Jungle. And I think it's just that simple. I'm not going to talk about what those changes are. Again, if you want to know what those changes are, you can tune into State of the Jungle this past Wednesday or the other sit-down morning shows. But I choose to spend my Friday productively. I choose to spend my Friday positive. And I'll just say that a lot is on the line these next few games for the Bengals and the morale of the locker room, right? And what this franchise looks like going into the offseason and next year and beyond. I think there's a lot that goes into it. I think there's going to be a lot of things to discuss. Jerry Gundler says, Burrow is smart. His statements are always calculated. He's asking for a change without stating the obvious. Bingo. I think that change is necessary. I think change is necessary for you to go to the next level. And maybe they've reached that point. Again, don't want to speculate too much. Don't want to put words in people's mouths, but been covering this game a long, long time. At the end of the day, we'll see what shakes out. I'll obviously have more to discuss on that front right after the Ravens game, whether it's a win, whether it's a loss. We'll discuss all of that. We know one thing's for sure. Mathematically, the Bengals are not out of playoff contention. Do with that information what you will. All right? Do with that information what you will, but you won't see me standing or grandstanding on any stages right now telling you what's going to happen, because just like this Bengals season, you have no idea what to expect. You have no idea what to expect. You have no idea if a victory is coming or if a loss is coming, if a team is going to be up and then a team's going to fall down. We have no idea to, stand on a hill and die on a hill. What I will say is everyone is entitled to their opinions. Everyone is entitled to be negative. Everyone's entitled to be positive. Everyone's entitled to be a little bit insane when it comes to projecting what this Bengals team might be. I will not sit up here on my mic and act as if my mic is more important than yours, or even tell you that you have to feel this way, because that's just not the case. That's the beautiful thing about rooting for a team. That's the beautiful thing about being a fan. You fan how you want to. Don't ever let anyone tell you how you have to fan or how you have to be. You approach this however you see fit.
Yeah, and just my thoughts real quick on the whole national media. In my opinion, what I saw from Adam Schefter and what I saw from Dan Orlovsky, it annoyed me just because it was like they were stating the obvious. And what that is Adam Schefter went up and said, oh, I've heard from many people, official teams, that they are calling and figuring out how can we get Joe Burrow?
And that might be the case. I'm sure there is some team out there that's
obvious.
trying to figure out how they can get Patrick Mahomes. There's a team out there that's probably trying to figure out how they can get Josh Allen. Listen, I'll say the quiet part out loud. I know Bengals fans speculate this, but with me, knowing things, I can tell you right now, Adam Schefter is not well liked in that building. Adam Schefter does not get a lot of information in that building. He usually gets the information secondhand, which is why his information is typically late. I can tell you that, right? And that they're one of the few teams that have like this wall up when it comes to Schefter. And I dealt with it in a similar situation with him, and then he ran with the story after I reported it, and then it was a whole big mumbo jumbo thing. But I say this: there is a personal vendetta there with the Bengals. So when you see him get on Get Up or ESPN in the morning, you see him with certain takes, stuff like that. Just know it is orchestrated. There is a reason why he has a vendetta with this Bengals team. I think the other guys like Dan Orlovsky, they have no agendas. I just think that they're looking for a hot take moment. I think they're looking for a moment to get themselves out there, and they're vying to be the guy with the next hot take. And, they're hoping that they can push the right buttons. Remember, at the end of the day, they're in the TV business, right? They're in the TV business. And the Bengals Twitter is one of the most active groups on social media. They just are. They have a younger to middle-aged fan base that are very hip to social media and what's going on, and they know that you're going to share those clips. They know you're going to clip things up. They know you're going to take things out of context. They don't care. It's more ratings for their shows. It's the reason why people like Chris Canty and other folks in the past have said outlandish things, because they knew that it would garner the attention that it garnered. Remember, everyone wants something out of this, right? Whether it's to further their agenda, to further their career, whatever the case may be. Everyone's going to get something out of it. And I cautioned that in the beginning of the season. I said there's going to be a lot of hot takes when it comes to the Bengals. The Bengals fans don't have knee-jerk reactions because they realize, hey, talking about the Cincinnati Bengals on our program is a hotbed topic. It's a topic that's going to get folks talking all throughout the week. You want to know why they came to that conclusion? Because they did it during the offseason. And guess what? The Cincinnati Bengals supplied enough content for the NFL throughout the entire offseason. Whether it be players showing up on First Take, whether it be players doing these media interviews, they were able to draw so many conclusions from the Trey Hendrickson, T. Higgins, Ja'Marr Chase situation that we supplied the biggest sports network with debate topics all throughout the year. All throughout the year. And so with that understanding, it puts things into perspective a little bit for you as to why every single time they bring up the Bengals, it's usually something negative. Now, if you're talking about the Zach Taylor thing or the Duke Tobin thing, I can get behind that. But attacking players or talking about how this player needs to request a trade or this player's out, or that's trying to do nothing besides hit a ratings quota. That's all that's about. And I'll tell you that firsthand. That is 100% the truth. Their job is to see who can come up with a knee-jerk reaction, who can gain a reaction, and go from there. Right? Mm-hmm. Negativity sells if people haven't realized that just yet. 2025, negativity sells. Folks are not tuning into your program to agree with you. Have we not realized that yet? Folks are not tuning into the ESPN program, the debate style program, to agree with you. They're tuning in to disagree with you, whether it's the LeBron Curry debate or the LeBron Jordan debate or the Cowboys playoff contenders debate. It's the same old thing. But people tune in to disagree. Very rarely are people tuning into a show to say, hey, you know what? I want folks to share the same opinion as me. No. Remember, whether you like it, whether you hate it, you force people to have an opinion. People tune into your content. It's for a reason. It's to solidify what they truly believe, which is not too often. It's pretty rare. Or it's to disagree with you. Or it's to tell you how you don't know what you're doing. Or how what you're saying doesn't actually truly matter. That's the quiet part being said out loud. And maybe I just blew the lid off the industry there, but it's whose fan base, who is going to give us an emotional response, an emotional reaction. That's who we're going to talk about the most. That's why they find a way to pull the Cowboys into every segment if they can. Newsflash. Sorry, let the cat out of the bag there. But again, at the end of the day, folks are going to feel how they're going to feel. Some of these folks don't even turn on the Cincinnati Bengals unless they're on prime time. And you can't expect them to have genuine takes that sort of make sense. You just can't, right? Ask these guys, how many of these guys are actually tuning in, watching every single team? You can't have a take about everything. There's only one guy that I know finds a way to watch almost every single game. And I look at him like, what the hell are you doing? And that's that guy sitting right next to me. I don't have enough time in the day, to be honest with you. I watch as much as I can, for sure. And I go back and I watch film, but watching the stuff, he will literally flip from channel to channel to channel to channel to channel to channel to channel. Daniel hasn't ever seen a commercial that he liked.
This is true. This is true.
But it is what it is. Hey, listen, it's not a Friday here at TWSN if it's not Fantasy Football Friday. So with that being said, let's bring our guy back in, 𝗦𝗂𝗕𝗏. Mike, I'm not going to ask you what's going on because I already know what's going on. I'm just going to kick it over to Daniel.
All right, Mike, let's get this thing going. First off, talk to me a little bit about your teams real quick. How are your teams doing in the fantasy football playoffs?
I mean, who knew that Kyle Pitts was going to be the guy you need in week 15? I mean, Malik has been on it all year long. And then he drops a hat trick with 140 yards. It was insane. I'm lucky to have some teams with Pitts on the roster, so I should get some teams through to week 16. But man, was I sweating last night.
Maybe I should return to fantasy football. I predicted this. I predicted Kyle Pitts was better than folks gave him credit for. I predicted Kyle Pitts would have this breakout, and a lot of people were writing his obituary. Listen, Kyle Pitts made himself a lot of coin last night.
Yes, he did.
He made himself a lot of coin. There are going to be some teams that are going to be breaking down that door because they're saying, you know what? The Atlanta Falcons don't know how to utilize Kyle Pitts. The Atlanta Falcons haven't utilized Kyle Pitts. I think this is also more of an indictment too on Michael Penix Jr. He's not in the starting lineup. It's due to injury. We hope he gets back. We hope that he's healthy. But all of a sudden, Kirk Cousins gets in there, and the guy is just lighting it on fire. Listen, where I stand, I think Kyle Pitts is a game changer still at the tight end spot. I think it took him a little bit to figure it out because he's a unicorn. He's an athlete. He plays this position that the NFL is still trying to figure out how to cover. That all being said, thank you, Mike.
All right, so let's get it going, man. Playoffs is a big time, and a lot of people, I'm sure, are kind of, like you said, stressing. So talk to me. Let's go with your two favorite starts, and then we'll go to a sit. But who are two guys that you are hammering in your lineups that you think can legitimately help somebody win their fantasy football playoffs?
Yeah, I'm gonna try and do my my best Malik impression here and just nail a tight end that's gonna bust out a big score this week. I've got, and Steve Bradshaw would be proud of me even though he's not on the show today. I've got Harold Fannin Jr. Having a big week against the Chicago Bears this week, and realistically, just like given the tight end position, you don't really have to, it's not like finding a needle in the haystack, really. Like if they have a positive outlook, just given the depth of the position, like you're jamming them in your lineup. And Harold Fannin Jr. is a guy you should be jamming in your lineup this week. I mean, personally, I think he's the best pass catcher on this Browns roster, and that's not really a testament to his talent, just given who he's up against. But the stats speak for themselves. I mean, he leads this team in just about every fantasy relevant metric, whether it be target share, target rate, yards per out run, and just like you watch him on the field, his ability to break tackles is just insane. And we know he can do a little bit of everything. So I've been really, really impressed with him this season. And then this week, David Njoku has not practiced Wednesday or Thursday. So any questions? We've seen his snap share kind of fluctuate throughout the year. Any questions about that will be out the window if Njoku's off the field. So I think just given the status and the landscape of the tight end position as a whole, this one's is a no-brainer.
For sure. And I think you even look at what he's done with Shedeur Sanders, I believe in every single game he's had at least 5 targets. And I know last game, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure it was 8 for 11, and the dude had close to 100 yards, and he had a touch on each of the past 2 games. So I agree. I think he's slowly becoming one of Shedeur's favorite targets. Who's your second favorite start of the week?
Yeah, my other one is 𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏 against the Saints. I think people are going to be starting to be nervous, get nervous, and move, try to move away from 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and it's understandable. His role has really cratered over the last couple of weeks. That's not a big shock to me. I mean, the tear that he was on there in the middle third of the season was obviously unsustainable, and a lot of that production did come against 2 of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL, at least at the time. So it's not a shock that he's regressed and opened the door for Chuba Hubbard to take on some more work. Couple that with the fact that they handed Chuba a big time extension last season. Seeing this move towards a 50-50 split is not a surprise in my eyes, but I still think this is a matchup to attack. And if you don't have many good options for your second running back, I think this is a guy you can go with. I mean, the Saints are a bottom 10 rushing defense and a middle of the pack fantasy matchup for running backs. But the most appealing part for me is that we know that the Panthers want to win football games with their rushing attack. You see it when you turn on the games, but the stats point to it too. They're the least pass-heavy offense in the NFL, and I just don't think that the Saints have the offense to put the Panthers in a position where they're going to have to abandon the run. So even with Chuba stealing some work and potentially on receiving down, stealing some of those valuable targets, I think that 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 clears 15 carries with ease. You hope he finds the end zone against a lackluster defense and then gets there for you in fantasy.
All right, Mike, I'm sorry, I might have lost you, but Mike, talk to me who your favorite sit of the week is for this week, week 15.
Yeah, I'll just rattle off both of mine in a row. The first being a quarterback. I know we don't really talk about quarterbacks much on this program, mostly kind of just guys you're considering for your flex or your second running back, second wide receiver, whatever it is. But a lot of he's emerged as a darling of just both the NFL and the fantasy community, and that's Jackson Dart. And obviously, like, there's a lot to love about him. He delivers some electric plays on the field, but I'm pretty nervous about rolling with him in fantasy football this week. I mean, for starters, we all know he's not, and I know you in your prediction segment said he would, but we all know that he's not really getting there through the air all that often. The appeal is really what he does on the ground. I mean, realistically, he's a coin flip to eclipse 200 passing yards in any given game. I know that the Panthers secondary is pretty brutal, which could allow him to bump up his passing output this week. But the concern for me is what we're seeing on the ground, which is obviously the biggest draw when it comes to his fantasy value. After he returned 2 weeks ago, they were on bye in week 14. After he returned from concussion in week 13, it really looked like that they were pulling the reins in when it came to his rushing production. Before week 13, in his 5 previous games, he had at least 4 designed carries in all 5 of those games. In week 13, he had 0. And I really do think that's a factor of them understanding that this is not a season to put it all on the line. They don't want to have their future quarterback banged up. And obviously, I'm pointing to a 1-game sample, so things could flip. But I really think the line of thinking there is pretty logical, and I think it's something that we see carry over into week 15 this week. So in terms of the rushing production, you're just really relying on him to break off a scramble. He's going to have a handful of scrambles still, but the designed rushes I just don't think are going to be there, which significantly caps his ceiling. I would be benching him this week. And then
I think that's totally.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair because you can tell with Kafka last week. I agree that could be something that's more than just a 1-game sample size. That could be a trend for the rest of the season. So talk to me about one more start, a guy that you would put into your lineup, somebody that you say, hey, maybe he's a sneaky play, but somebody that could win your matchup as a flex.
Yeah, I'm going right back to this Panthers Saints game, and it actually happens to be the running back on the other side of the ball in Devin Neal, rookie Devin Neal. I believe he's a 4th or 5th round pick, but rookie running back Devin Neal. unsurprisingly, just given the injuries that the Saints backfield has dealt with, Kendre Miller out for the year, Alvin Kamara trending towards not playing once again. So unsurprisingly, he's taken on the bulk of the rushing work. Last week, he played 2/3 of the snaps and handled 17 of the 20 backfield opportunities. So really, really strong usage. Obviously, you'd like that to be coupled with an offense that's capable of racking up points. That's not the reality of the situation. Sometimes with these fringe decisions, especially at running back, we just have to be chasing volume. And I see no reason why it would change for the Saints. He blossomed when he was given the opportunity last week. He had his first career touchdown. He posted 15.9 PPR points, which was good for a fringe RB1 finish on the week. And the Panthers rushing defense last year was truly, truly, truly abysmal. But this year, it's pretty middle of the pack in terms of most statistical measures. So it's a fine matchup. But in this spot, I'm just chasing the volume. And once again, just hoping he falls in the end zone. But when you're expecting him to get 15 plus touches, there's just not many more suitable options than that.
Awesome, Mike. All right. Well, I hope that you have a good fantasy football playoffs. How many teams would you say you got in the playoffs right now?
So I play a different form of fantasy for the most part, and I ended up drafting 182 of those teams. So I've got about close to 40 teams in action this week, I would say. So I'll be keeping my eye on every single one of the games this week.
All right, man. Well, we appreciate you being on the show, and hopefully we have some good news for next week, and maybe we can win some people some fantasy matchups. So once again, as always, you guys can follow Mike down below. And Mike, we appreciate you.
Of course, man. I'll see you guys next week.
Appreciate you, Mike.
Catch you.
See you guys.
See you, buddy. Listen, I want to keep the conversation rolling, but again, it's not Friday if we don't have our guy, my guy, 𝗦𝗢𝗙𝗏 in here to discuss a little bit of UFC action and give our thoughts on Kape versus 𝗦𝗏𝗏 this week, as well as some fights on that card. What's going on, Evan?
How you doing, Malik?
I'm doing good, man. It's been a while. It's been a while since you and I sat and talked, and I think we were both a little taken back to a degree by Petr Yan dominating Merab Dvalishvili. You know, Petr Yan had the perfect game plan for him. Petr Yan is now the UFC bantamweight champion. And you know what's funny? We didn't get a chance to talk about this, and admittedly, I'll be honest with you, I picked Merab to win that fight, but I did tell Daniel the day before, I said, what do you think about Petr Yan actually beating him? You know, he wasn't able to get the takedown going. And I said, I think he could hurt Merab to the body. Those were my exact words, right, Daniel? He could hurt Merab to the body. And sure enough, he hurt Merab to the body. Now, certainly, I didn't think it would be as dominant as it was. I thought that, if anything, I thought that maybe Petr Yan would look strong in the opening rounds and then Petr Yan would take over. But I thought Petr Yan's path to victory was winning the first three, with one of them being a toss-up. And I thought maybe he would get like a split decision, potentially, if he were to win that way. But I still felt like Merab, the machine's name, would have rang true. I thought he would have been a machine out there. I thought he would have found a way to win that. That didn't happen. That didn't happen. I also am very sick to see the way Pantoja lost his flyweight championship. And I understand for a guy like Joshua Van, who's happy that he won. It just didn't sit the greatest with me personally. I think that the UFC, I wish the UFC would have a better way of handling those things, especially because there are so many people that put money on these fights. I think that that should have just been a no contest. Personally, I would like to see injuries that take place, as unfortunate as those, like that, or just within the open seconds, and you didn't do anything significant to make that happen outside of obviously grab the leg. I don't know. I feel like there's a better way of handling those kind of unfortunate circumstances. We've seen these happen in the past, and I think one with such title implications, I feel like, I don't know, man. I think that there's got to be a better way to handle that, right? Whether it's, hey, let's call this a no contest, the belt is vacated, or hell, like what does that show up on the loss? That shows up as a TKO loss on the record of Alexander Pantoja, and that's just not fair. That's just not fair. I don't think that's fair to him. I don't think that's fair to people that put money on it. I don't think that's fair to the sport personally. What are your thoughts, Evan?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It was definitely an unfortunate way to see the dominant title reign come to an end. I mean, that was probably for on the entire card, and seeing it end 45 seconds in by a fluke arm injury was very disappointing. I definitely can understand where Van is in the moment because he's worked his whittle, but it was nice to at least see him recognize that after the fact and say that he wants to fight with Pantoja as soon as he's recovered and however long that's going to take. It's just unfortunate that now the flyweight division has a total wrench thrown into it with this injury. We're probably not going to get to see that fight until after probably a Van versus Ira fight, I would assume, considering how ugly that injury looked to Pantoja. I assume it'll probably take him at least a couple months to recover from that. So I think they'll probably look to put
I agree.
Van versus Tyra up next, and then the winner of that'll go Pantoja. But yeah, it was just a really unfortunate way to see that title reign come to an end, and I wish there was a way that we could figure out what's the best way to handle a situation like that.
I agree. Hey, let's jump in here. Let's talk about some of these fights taking place this week. I'm going to start it off with the main event. Brandon Royval taking on Manel Kape. Hey, listen, I'll tell you right now. I don't have the most faith in Brandon Royval anymore at flyweight. It just seems like he flirted with the idea of moving up. He flirted with the idea of staying in this division. I question his IQ. The performance he had against Joshua Van. I walked away feeling he could have won that fight. I walked away from that fight feeling if he was fought a little bit smarter, he hurt Joshua Van in there. He caught Joshua Van in there, but he got too caught up in the firefight. And I just think that Manel Kape is way too smart to get into fights, get into a fight like that. It took Manel Kape a little bit to find his footing in the UFC. He's found his footing now. And, in years past, I'd easily pick Brandon Royval to win this fight, but I just feel like Manel Kape is probably going to be the fighter with the better IQ here. What are your thoughts, Evan?
Yeah, I can see that avenue here, but I think I'm rolling with Brandon Royval in this week's main event.
Okay.
I don't like the odds at all for Manel Kape as an over 3-1 favorite in this one. I mean, Brandon Royval is a guy with wins over Brandon Moreno and 𝗪𝗏. And I mean, honestly, the best win on Manel Kape's record is probably 𝗪𝗏. I think the top level experience for Royval is something that Kape hasn't quite reached at this point. I could definitely see an avenue where Royval gets involved too much in the pocket boxing fight, and that's where Kape does his best work, and we could see that being how this fight plays out. But I think I'm looking at this more from a betting perspective, and I see plus 230 next to Brandon Royval, and I just think those odds are too good to pass up at this point.
Yeah, I think I can see both, and I agree with you that the value is probably on the Royval side as the underdog, but I think that both of these guys, I like the decision here, and that's where I'm rolling with, because I think that both of these guys are tough ass fighters, and both of these guys, like, you look at Royval, he's been involved in some absolute wars, and I don't really remember the last time he was finished. Obviously, his last fight was a decision, and that was one I thought he was actually winning up until the end with Joshua Van. And to be honest with you, I think that fight would have gone a little bit differently if, number one, he didn't fight stupid, and number two, that wasn't a late notice fight. Having your fight transferred within, I believe it was less than a week,
Yeah,
you're preparing for somebody completely different. So I agree with you that Royval will probably look better in this fight, but the dude is just a dog. The dude is a scrapper, and I was very impressed with Manel Kape's last fight. So if I were to pick, I think Manel Kape probably wins this, and I think he wins a decision in this one.
But doesn't that speak to maybe him like not being as mentally prepared as he possibly could be? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I get it, your opponent changed, but I'd expect you to look much better, seeing as you're the guy that's been in a training camp versus the guy that's coming in on a short notice. And the fact that he was able to drop you, the fact that he was able to hurt you several times, and then he even talked about moving up in weight. To me, this, I don't know. I love Brandon Royval. You know me. I picked Brandon Royval to beat Pantoja when they fought. And I was very dumbfounded from his IQ decision making. As far as I was concerned, before they made this announcement, Brandon Royval made it seem as if he was moving up in weight. And it seemed like he was leaving the flyweight division. I think that this is the fight that makes him leave the flyweight division. Now, granted, as I told y'all before, I think in years past, I would easily pick Brandon Royval. I just think that Manel Kape wants the title. I think Manel Kape has his eyes set on the title. And I think Manel Kape, he's fought in 5-round fights before, just like Brandon Royval has fought in 5-round fights before. I think Manel Kape wins this one. I think he just looks stylistically better than Brandon Royval.
The one thing I would say to that point, and this is more of a storyline thing, but a lot of times the storyline tends to go how the fight goes. And I think the storyline favors Manel Kape, because we've seen the Royval Pantoja fight. Manel Kape has history with Pantoja. I believe he lost the decision to Pantoja. And this is something where we see this time and time again where, hey, we see a rematch, or maybe it's for a title fight. And 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗏 has been this figure for the flyweight division, going out and arguing with everybody, arguing with Israel Adesanya. This is his chance. And I think that when we look at momentum, this is kind of the path to seeing it blossom. And there's a real path where we look at history and we see 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗏's fight history, and he goes out, he knocks out Bruno Silva, he goes out, knocks out 𝗬𝗓𝗏, he goes out in a main event, beats Brandon Royval. He's got a title shot waiting for him.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're looking at trajectory, I think that it favors 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗏, and that's probably where I would lean.
Hey, listen, there's some more fights that I want to get into real quickly. You want to talk about value? Amanda Lemos taking on Jillian Roberts. Amanda Lemos is a plus 158 favorite, and I get it, the wrestling of Jillian Roberts, but I think they've got this one mistaken. Listen, Amanda Lemos has been in there against some tough grapplers. One of those grapplers being the champion, 𝗬𝗓𝗏 Zhang. 𝗬𝗓𝗏 Zhang was able to finish her. She lasted 5 rounds with her. I think Jillian Roberts is going to have a very tough out. You know, Jillian Roberts is very good, but it always seems like when Jillian Roberts gets a step up in competition, she tends to falter. This is going to be that spot. A plus 158 on the Amanda Lemos side. Hell, I would even take a shot at Amanda Lemos winning this fight by knockout. But Evan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can see that, but I think this is a different Jillian Robertson than we've seen in the past. I really like this move down in weight for her. She's looked a lot stronger in this at strawweight than she did at flyweight. I think with Lemos, she finds a lot of her success from her physicality and her ability to knock people out. If Lemos is going to win, I actually do think it would be by TKO. But I am going to side with Jillian Robertson in this one. I do think she's going to be able to break Lemos down, and I think there's a good possibility she wins this by submission near the end of the fight.
Yeah, I'd probably take Jillian Robertson in this one. I just, maybe I'm reading too much into the last fight. I think it was Tatiana Suarez, and obviously is a much better striker than Robertson, but Suarez made Lemos look garbage. And that's probably where I'm looking at with this fight. I think Robertson has looked good her past couple fights, and the fact that Lemos is getting up
Suarez
there
was a
in
better
age.
striker?
What?
Just Suarez was a better striker?
Yeah.
No. Out of
How did she win then? I
she
almost
wrestled her.
sworn.
She wrestled. She wrestled her a little bit. She grappled her. Listen, Tatiana Suarez is a huge grappler. She is someone who I would consider to be basically the Khabib to a degree of women's MMA, not necessarily in success, but more so in style. She has a grinding type of style, and I think that when you constantly have someone that's looking to shoot on you, well, it kind of thwarts your offense. I think Tatiana Suarez is way more physically imposing than Jillian Robertson. And listen, I like Jillian Robertson. I really do. But I just think that Amanda Lemos, I think a lot of people are just forgetting how good Amanda Lemos actually is. Just a fight before that, she beat Yasmin Lucindo. Listen, I think this is a girl that has been in there against some of the tougher opponents. I was a little bit dumbfounded that Amanda Lemos lost to Virna Jandiroba. That was back in 2024. But remember, are we forgetting that Amanda Lemos is the same girl that beat the now current UFC strawweight champion Mackenzie Dern? Are we forgetting these things? Are we forgetting that she's been in there with some of the top opponents? And I think that, and I can't believe I'm saying this, and this might sound disrespectful, but I think that Jillian Robertson is a step down for her. I really do.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about the wrong fight. I think I was thinking of Jessica Andrade in her last fight. But yeah, this Tatiana Suarez, that was on 𝗏𝗏. That was actually a while ago. And yeah, she got dominated on the ground. So yeah, I'm excited to see how that one plays out. But
yeah, it's gonna be an interesting fight for sure. But Evan, we're going head to head already on that. It's kind of crazy. You're gonna lose, my friend. You're gonna lose on that one. But let's talk about 𝗦𝗡𝗏𝗏 taking on Evan. You pronounce the name.
Okay. I think it's Yaroslav Amosov. I think that's
Yaroslav Amosov is going to win this fight via KO or submission.
Yeah,
that is what is going to happen. If I am a betting man, and I am a betting man, I would probably take him by KO or submission. I would not take him by one or the other, because it would just tend to go the other way. I just think that obviously his easier path to victory is submission, but 𝗦𝗡𝗏𝗏 also is not a fish out of water on the ground. He can survive. We've seen 𝗦𝗡𝗏𝗏𝗏 throw up submissions. This feels like they're feeding 𝗦𝗡𝗏𝗏𝗏 to the Sharks. They're expected that Yaroslav is going to run through 𝗦𝗡𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. We'll see what happens. Evan, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I like 𝗪𝗧𝗏 in this one for sure. I mean, I've been a big Neil Magny defender in the past, and honestly, it's made me some money, especially in his last two fights. But I think the way I steer away from you on this one is I think Amasov's going to win this fight by a decision. What
Mm,
I've seen from him, uh, Amasov is not somebody who's going to play up the looking for a big moment kind of fight. I think that's what took him so long to get into the UFC. He just doesn't have the most entertaining style of fight. And Neil Magny, as you mentioned, is not a fish out of water, really, wherever the fight goes. I don't see Amasov like landing a big knockout punch that puts Neil Magny out. I think he'd have to TKO ground and pound. That's where I could see a finish, but I don't think Magny's going to get submitted. I just think this is going to be Amasov landing takedowns at will and grinding out a pretty dominant decision win.
Yeah, I look at this one and this is pretty easy. I like Amasov in this one. And I see a lot of people are trying to go with Neil Magny as the underdog, and I understand their logic, but where I think people are missing out, especially on these UFC newcomers, is a lot of the time these guys are green. A lot of time these guys haven't been fighting for a long time. This dude's got 30 fights on his resume. This dude has been dominant. And this dude is he's training, I believe, with one of the best teams. I believe it's American Top Team.
Yeah.
But this guy is not a fish out of water. This guy is not green. He's a legit fighter. And I think that this is going to be different than other debuts. And I agree with you. I think that they're feeding Neil Magny to the Wolves in this one. I don't really know how he gets it done. I could see a decision. I could see a finish. I've just seen Neil Magny get done bad.
yeah.
Bad. So I don't know.
Yeah, listen, there are some weird fights on this fight. You got King Green taking on Lance Gibson Jr. Let's just do a quick roundtable. Evan, where do you see that fight landing? What do you think happens there?
Yeah, it's a weird one. I don't really know much about Lance Gibson like that. I mean, he's got raw power for sure, and if Bobby Green has no defense left, then he could end up getting knocked out cold again. That's definitely a feasible option. I'm not betting on this fight, but I guess I'll slightly side with Bobby Green just because of experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me King Green. I think King obviously got done bad in his last fight, but that was against 𝗬𝗫𝗄𝗏, who is a fantastic striker. Give me King Green.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see how that fight plays out. I don't know who's going to win this fight, and I do believe that Lance Gibson Jr. could find the chin of Bobby Green because I do believe Bobby Green is over the hill at this point in his career. You've got Joanderson Brito taking on Isaac Thompson. I'm mad that the props have not dropped just yet because I would take Joanderson Brito by finish here. What are your thoughts, Devin?
Yeah, I'm right with you there. I don't know. Isaac Thompson taking this fight on 4 days' notice. I'm happy for him that he gets to be in the UFC, but I think Brito's too dangerous an opponent. I've got him by second round knockout.
Yep, and I think that he also is out to prove something as well. Daniel, your thoughts?
I agree. Brito's looked rough and has lost me some money in some of his fights, but this is a smash spot for Brito. I think he gets a finish.
I'll keep doing a quick rundown. I think Kennedy Nzechukwu absolutely slaughters his opponent, whether it's by KO, which I could see him dropping him and then getting a neck crank or something like that on there. I think Kennedy Nzechukwu wins this fight against 𝗬𝗫𝗄𝗏. Any thoughts on that, Evan?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I just, after seeing 𝗬𝗫𝗄𝗏 and how bad he came out against Martin Buday, I think the athletic advantage of Nzechukwu is just going to be too much for him to handle in this one.
I agree.
Yep.
You got Morgan Sherry taking on 𝗦𝗫𝗢𝗄𝗕𝗄𝗏. I always have a hard time with his name. I feel like this is a classic bounce back spot for Morgan, but Miguel is not he's not an easy fight. That's what I will say. He is good on the ground, but again, Morgan does have some power. He has the ability to lay on top of you and hold you down. He also he's a hunter. He tries to finish you. He really does try to go out there and finish you. What are your thoughts on this fight? Because I think this is a very technical fight this week.
I love this fight. I think both these guys are pretty high-level fighters in this division. I think they're both going to make some noise as their career goes on. I do side with Costa in this one. I really like what he's been able to put out in his last 4 fights. He seems to be making improvements every time he goes out there. Shari is a high-volume guy for sure. I just think Costa is going to land the more damaging strikes. And I think he might be, if this fight hits the ground, I think I like his weapons more down there. I'm going to take Costa.
Yeah, I'd probably take Costa in this. I remember Morgan's was kind of a decision merchant before his last fight that I think he put out Nate Landwehr bad. I'd probably take Miguel or
He-
Costa
he-
in this one.
He does hunt for finishes. It's weird.
Yeah.
He does try to hunt for finishes, but if it doesn't come in, he kind of gets into like this sparring match thing. But this is a dude, he does try to hunt for finish. That's why I said
Yeah,
he's
he
a
does.
finisher.
Oh,
I
is
think
that
that
what
he-
you said? I didn't.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
That's
okay.
what I was saying. Like, I feel like he just hasn't broken his way in the UFC.
Yeah.
Always with finishes. But I think this is a guy, he's not a guy that tries to go out there and just try to pitter pat. He really does try to go out there and finish if he can. He's nasty on the ground.
His last
too.
5 wins are by KO.
Yeah.
So.
And so I'll keep it going. Cesar Almeida taking on 𝗬𝗟𝗍𝗍𝗂𝗧𝗏.
This is brother? Oh,
Yeah,
Miguel?
that's his brother.
Yeah.
I believe that's his
Mhm.
brother, right?
It is. Yep.
Cesar is a underdog, a plus 176 underdog. Evan, tell me why I shouldn't take that.
I've got 𝗬𝗟𝗍𝗂𝗧 in this one. I'm not super confident in it, but the one thing I've seen with Almeida that I don't necessarily like is his defense.
Yeah.
He's been cracked a couple times, even though he's been able to recover. 𝗪𝗏𝗪𝗏 Al-Hassan. He put Al-Hassan out bad. I mean, it was one of the most violent knockouts
Yeah.
of the year. That he got cracked by Al-Hassan and was on kind of back against the fence and just landed a perfect counter shot. Almeida's kickboxing offense is obviously elite. He's a kickboxer. I also just think at the age difference here is a bit wild. I mean, Almeida's 37, 𝗬𝗟𝗍𝗂𝗧 is 25. 𝗬𝗟𝗍𝗂𝗧 does have a solid bit of professional experience. He's 16-3. I think he's the better grappler of the two. I just think the versatility and the speed of 𝗬𝗟𝗍𝗂𝗧 is going to be enough to get this one done.
Yeah, 𝗬𝗟𝗍𝗂𝗧 is a beast, and I remember that last fight by Almeida's knockout. I'd probably take 𝗬𝗟𝗍𝗂𝗧 in this one as well.
I'm laughing right now because I'm looking at 𝗬𝗟𝗍𝗂𝗧's record, and he fought Tom Breese. Remember Tom Breese?
He did.
Oh
He
my
did fight Tom
gosh.
Breese.
He knocked out Tom Breese in the first round. Listen, I don't know if I'm there yet. I think that Cesar Almeida is still a tough out. I think he is a tough out, guys. I really believe that. And I think we got to see how he looks in there. We obviously know 𝗬𝗟𝗍𝗂𝗧 is fighting with the fighting nerd, just like his brother, Michael 𝗬𝗟𝗍𝗂𝗧, and they're both tough guys. I wonder, though, if Almeida is going to be able to find the chin. And if Almeida finds the chin, he has the ability to put anybody out. I really believe that. He has some nasty, devastating power in there. And again, the 𝗬𝗟𝗍𝗂𝗧s are tough. They're tough, right? They're Polish fighters. That they're going to come game. They're going to come ready. But listen, I don't know. I think that's one of the ones that I'm probably going to live bet. But I don't like Cesar Almeida's grappling is what I will say. I don't like his grappling. I think that 𝗬𝗟𝗍𝗂𝗧's easiest path to victory is to take this fight to the ground, get this fight to the ground, let it be in his world, kind of wear on the gas tank of Cesar Almeida, and then take over the fight as the fight goes. Hey, one last fight I want to talk about before we let you get out of here, Evan, is Kevin Vallejos taking on 𝗬𝗍𝗂𝗧𝗧𝗏. Listen, Kevin Vallejos is Daniel's guy. Daniel kind of talked to me about this. He kind of might side with 𝗬𝗍𝗂𝗧𝗏 in this fight, so I'm gonna let you two take this one away.
Yeah, Evan, you can start this one off because I'm a big fan of Kevin, and like I love his fighting style and I love his boxing. I think this dude is a beast. I think this dude is a future contender. And while Giga hasn't looked great in his past couple fights, I'm curious to hear your opinion on this because I think that the range of Giga could really cause some problems for Kevin. And we saw even in Kevin's last fight, he kind of struggled a little bit with the range. So talk to me. Who do you think wins this fight?
I think this just depends on how Vallejos chooses to fight this fight, because there's a clear path here for Vallejos to win this if he chooses it. 𝗬𝗂𝗪𝗏 does not like when he can't be that I'm going to stick from the outside, I'm going to hit you with kicks, because he's got great kicks, great long distance striking. But when he gets pressure put on him, whether it's by a guy who's trying to fight in the pocket or take the fight to the ground, he does struggle. I think Vallejos can make that read. He is really good in the pocket. I see this being, I think there's going to be a close first round. Maybe it's a feeling out process. Maybe even 𝗬𝗂𝗪𝗏 takes the first round off of him. But I think Vallejos is going to understand that he's got to get into the pocket and make this guy work. And when he does that, I just think he's going to do far more damage than 𝗬𝗂𝗪𝗏 is going to be able to do. I think this is a really good one for Vallejos by decision at plus money. But that's where I'm going with this one.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably where I lean to. I think I got to go with Kevin in this just because, I think he's a future contender. And this is the fight. It goes really one of two ways, right? He either loses a decision and it's like, man, he's not there yet, but he will be there. or he goes out and he wins a close decision. But I agree that when I watch Giga, his biggest problem is when he's getting pressure. And Kevin, that's all he does. He's a pressure boxer. He's a guy, he's going to work his way to the inside. And that's where I maybe am just going to stay away from this one and watch, because if I kind of know a fight is likely going to go to decision, I don't know if I'm willing to put some coin behind that. But I think Kevin is going to win this by decision, and that's what I'm hoping for as well.
Hey, listen, this is going to be an interesting card. Evan, as always, man, looking forward to going head-to-head with you. Appreciate you, my man. Hope that you enjoy your Friday. Best of luck to your Commanders, too, this week against the New York Giants and Jackson Dart. I got to get your temperature check on this. Do you want Dan Quinn to come back as head coach, or?
I want to come back as head coach as long as we can get rid of Joe Whitt.
Okay.
I think I know him and Joe Whitt have a tight relationship. He brought him over from Dallas. Joe Whitt he's pretty awful. As soon as we took the play calling away from him, the defense started to get a little better. I think that, I mean, this team has been riddled with injuries all year. There's been some problems. I definitely think Dan Quinn should go into next season with a warm seat for sure. He could be somebody that if it's really bad to start next season, we could see a mid-season fire kind of thing going on there. But I don't really know with what this head coaching cycle looks like, if there's somebody that'd be worth it to replace Dan Quinn with.
That makes sense. That makes sense. You know, I had to get your obvious thoughts on your Washington Commanders. Listen, Evan, we'll be texting through the card, man. Thank you so much, brother. Best of luck this week to your teams, and I hope you enjoy the fights, my man.
You too.
Evan Theo Harris, everybody. Listen, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the Sit Down Morning Show with 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗏𝗏. We'll be back live on Monday at 10:30 a.m. with our guy, Tim Andrews, to discuss all the happenings in the NFL and discuss the Cincinnati Bengals. Of course, I want to thank you so much for making us a part of your regular routine every Monday, Thursday, and Friday. Remember, there's only one way you should be waking up, talking sports, enjoying sports, having that cup of coffee, and that is the right way. We'll see you guys on Monday, everybody.
This is 𝗬𝗎𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. You ain't heard about us yet, well, you better know